Welcome everybody. We have with us today Michael Ben Menachem, author of 9 books, 8 in psychology, and a book on his experience during the war called Playing with Paper Soldiers. I know Miki for many years. He knows me since I'm a little baby. It's an absolute honor to speak with you today.
So you grew up in Hungary. You were a very young child when the war...
I was born in 1936, and the war, started in 1939. And I didn't understand much of it at the beginning, of course. The first thing which I figured that was something wrong when my mother told me that I have to have this Star of David, the yellow star on my clothes. Otherwise, I wasn't allowed to go out to the street. And I was upset about it because when I did that, then kids on the street could laugh at me and point at me. I was pretty upset, but my mother told me I had no alternative because I could be shot if I don't have it on. In my Swedish book, I have a photo on the front and then the synagogue behind. Shall I show you the book?
Yeah.
Sure.
Here is the book. This is my Swedish book.
Swedish.
See? And as my photo, I am 8 years old there. And you can see the synagogue, our synagogue behind my photo. And right beside the synagogue, you see a window of another building. And that was the window to our classroom.
Wow.
Second grade, almost finished second grade. So I could read and write already. I was very proud of my writing abilities. And so I went to my father and asked him to buy me a military hat. A stupid little boy, didn't get it. And he refused to do that. So I had a regular basque cup, and I folded it in the middle, and I was sitting on it for hours. So it looked like that you could see on the photo. I imagined that I looked like a soldier. Stupid, eh?
Oh, wow.
Then it was beautiful weather, like now, a little bit later, May 1944, when the war came very fast to me.
You speak about the paper soldiers you would play with.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That my father brought home big paper sheets with printed soldiers, Hungarian and German soldiers, and I loved those soldiers. So I cut them out, and they were marching at home on our living room carpet. And I didn't understand that there were real soldiers walking around and killing, and millions of people were dying. I didn't understand. And then one day, it's it's very beautiful weather in southern Hungary. We had lots of acacia trees. It has lovely white flowers, smelling very nicely. And so it was a very good smell in the whole city, and it didn't look dangerous in any way. And I'm on my way home from school, and all in a sudden, two boys, big boys, they cut me, and they throw me down to a ditch. And that was a deep ditch for sewage water. And I got all dirty and bad smelling, and I had a hard time to get out of this ditch. And I went home crying and didn't understand why they did it to me. And they were shouting, "Ah, dirty Jew." And I thought they were right, because I was really dirty. I didn't understand that they were calling Jews dirty.
When did you realize that the soldiers were bad? You were saying how you thought they were, you played with the little soldiers. When did you realize that they...
Well, one day my mother was in Budapest. My mother, she used to work in Budapest. My father came home from the shop, and he said, "Miki," that's my name at home, and he said, "I have something very sad to tell you." And my father never told me something. I love my father, and he wasn't talking so much, but I felt warmth from him. And I said, "What, Daddy, what happened?" And he said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but there is a new law against Jews. I know that we were Jewish. We used to go, my father and I, always to the synagogue on Friday evening." And I said, "Well, what happened?" And he said, "It's a new law against us Jews. And from yesterday, Jews are not allowed to take a train." And I said, "What? But mother is in Budapest, so how shall she get home?" And my father said, "I don't know." And none of us knew that we will never see her again.
Horrible.
But I didn't know it then yet, so it was a shock. And the next day I was just about ready to go to school. I was packing my bag, and my father said, I know, but today you and I have to go to a ghetto. And I have heard the word ghetto, but I didn't know what it was. But my father took my hand and we started to walk, and I loved to walk with my father. I have seen him only Friday evenings when we walked to a synagogue, and on Sunday afternoon we went to a soccer game. Otherwise, he was so busy with his shop, and I was already asleep when he came home. So we walked and walked and walked. It was very warm days. Well, I was lucky. I had just short shorts, short pants, and the summer shirt on me. And it has an importance because that was one of my worst experiences during the war, that I was dressed like that. And so we got to this place, and I knew this place. This was a type of a sawmill, and it was belonging. And the two boys, they went to my class, and they always asked us classmates to come over and play, have fun, hide and seek. We were playing there. And I knew the place very well. And I told Father, this is not a ghetto. This is a sawmill. I didn't get it. And so we walked in. We walked in, and it was full with people. Usually, there were only the people, the few workers who worked with the sawmill, and then the kids running around. And I said, they're all Jewish people. I know everybody here, and my whole school was here. Our school teacher was there. And I said, what are all these Jews doing here? Are all playing hide and seek? What's going on? And then I got another idea. I thought, I know what it is. It must be a Jewish summer camp. That's what it is. But then I thought, it's too early. It's only May. We used to have summer camps in July or August. Then I didn't understand anything. I wondered, what is this? What's going on? And this was getting evening, and my father said, it's time for synagogue. And I said, shall we go to the synagogue? And my father said, no, Miki, we cannot go there. And I said, it's not far from here. I said, I know, but we are not allowed to. And that was the first thing in my mind. What's going on? I still didn't get it. And we were in a corner of this place, and the ladies managed to light their candles just on pieces of wood. They didn't have the beautiful silver candlestick. And so we had our service. I knew all the songs. I thought this was fun. And after that, I said, now we go home, Daddy. And he said, no, Miki, we cannot go home. I said, shall we sleep here? And he said, yes. I said, but there's no beds here and no bedclothes. Well, how shall we do this? And he said, I don't know. So we looked around, and people were laying down on the ground and hiding behind big heaps of wood. And so that's how we did it too. And during the night, so my father put me with his jacket. And in the morning, I was washing myself. In the middle was a well there. And all in a sudden, I see this police, and they were country police. They were the green uniform and the hat with feathers on it. They were very beautiful. And I wondered, what are they doing here all in a sudden? Quite a number of them. And all in a sudden, they started to hit people. They were kicking small children, hitting pregnant ladies, and everybody was crying and shouting. And my first thought was, why are they doing this? And then the people didn't do anything, and somebody can stop them. What is this? And then I thought, what happened if some of them will hit my father? I didn't think about it that I could hit me. And I thought, I kill him. I didn't have time to figure in what way I could kill him. And all in a sudden, there is one of these policemen right for us. And I thought, what happens now? But this police, he was quite a round, a chubby fellow. And he obviously knew my father. And then everybody was shouting and crying around us. It was a horrible situation. And he says to my father in a kind of friendly voice, he said, Uncle Marco, why did not you take proper clothes for the boy? This clothes is not enough for the journey. And I thought, journey, shall we travel? That's wonderful. I love to travel. Sometimes we went up to the capital and, it took hours with the train, and it was so interesting to take a train and look at the landscape. And I thought it started horribly, but if we can travel, it can be beautiful. And my father tells him, I am so sorry, but my wife is away, and I'm not close to take for the boy. And then the police said, you know what? I let you go home. Go home, get some clothes for the boy, and for yourself also come back. And he went with my father to the entrance and talked to his colleagues, and they let my father go.
Wow. That's amazing.
But he was back very soon, and he had nothing with him. He came back empty-handed, and he was talking nonstop. I have never seen my father that way. And people gathered around him and wanted to listen to what he has to say. And he said, nothing left. What is he talking about? So he went home. He wanted to open the door to our apartment. He didn't have to do that. It was broken. And he went into the apartment. Remember that we went in on Friday, and it was on Saturday morning. And the apartment was completely empty.
How crazy. That's
No furniture, no carpets, no clothes, no food, nothing. Even my paper soldiers, everything was gone.
Right.
And then I got very upset. I said, I have no toys anymore. Why did I take it? Who take it? And then after the war, we have learned that there were our nice neighbors who did that. Watched it without saying anything.
terrible. You were deported the next day?
Yeah, 500 people about. And we were pushed through the whole city. We went by our shop too, because our shop was on the main street, and it was locked. And I said, Dad, you are not going to the shop? He said, no, Miki, I'm not allowed to. Many Jewish shops there on the main street. And it was Uncle Rebel, he was an optician. And beside that was Ilonka Levi. She was selling windows, and the pharmacy in the corner. They were all Jewish families owning this place, and they were all walking with us, even our family doctor. And I, on my 8-year-old head, I was thinking, how shall people manage it now in Rosh Hashanah if we have to go away somewhere? I mean, without a doctor, without medicine, without eyeglasses, without books. How shall people here carry on? How shall they manage?
Crazy.
And only afterwards I figured that people on both sides of the street, they stopped and looked at us. And a small town, everybody knows everybody. And nobody said a word. They were just looking. Kept hitting us even there. I was lucky because I was in the middle of a row, and I walked between my father and his best friend, Gabor. So I didn't get, I was not hit. But many were who went on the outside. And it took a long time. He was very tired, and it was a hot day. In May, it can be very hot. And so we got to the train station. And I thought, now finally we can travel, that will be fun. But there was no train there. And I said, Dad, there's no train here. And he said, yes, just look on the side, Miki, and there is a train. I looked at the side, I said, this is not a regular train, Daddy. And I could read, I was so proud of myself. And I said, it says on every wagon is for 6 horses. This is a train for horses. And my father said, you read right, our train. And then this police started to push us up to these wagons. And I understood later that we were over 80 people in one wagon for 6 horses.
Wow.
So it was so awful that our parents could hardly stand there. And we small children, we were crawling on their feet. And we had no idea where we were on our way.
Terrible. So where did they take you?
Well, they took us to several ghettos. And the third ghetto, it was in Eastern Hungary. Ended up in a big slave labor camp in the middle of the
Wow.
And that was already around August to September 44. And the Allied forces owned the air. They could bomb without any resistance. So both American and British and Soviet bombers came over Vienna twice a day. They came always I'm talking Swedish,
Yeah.
sorry. Uh, they came at 10 o'clock in the morning and around 10 o'clock in the evening. And my father was on work during the day. My father worked with the trains because the Americans bombed the train, the railway. And so that was their job, to repair the trains.
What was your day-to-day life like during in the camp?
My occupation in the camp was mainly to be hungry.
Oh wow.
Well, you have no idea what they gave us to eat, if I can call it for food. In the morning, we got a little brown water. They called it some kind of coffee, and this was no coffee, and it was water, just plain water. Why it was brown, I don't know. And in the afternoon, we got a very yucky soup. They called it Dörrgemüse, which in German means dry vegetable. But it was the worst thing I ever tasted, so I was spitting out this. But I was so hungry all the time, a little boy. So I have learned to swallow this ugly soup. And in the evening, the same coffee, it called again. And that was that.
Horrible.
Times that during the weekend, we got a little piece of margarine and some mustard. Why, I don't know, but I put it on a piece of black gluey bread and ate it up in 1 minute. That was it. And so I was hungry all the time. And when I have seen here in Göteborg two beggars, they're coming from Romania or Bulgaria, and they're sitting before shops here and begging. I always remember how we children were begging, sticking out our hands and hoping that people who walked by would give us something.
Were you able to like play during the day? Did you like have any sort of
What were your
We
games?
didn't have any toys or anything like that. We were just running around, or basically to be inside because we were in barracks and they were not heated, but they were a little bit warmer there than outside. I remember that I had just short pants and a summer shirt, and it was minus degrees, so it was very cold. And my toes got damaged, and because of lack of food, my teeth started to fall out. So I was very busy with my problems. Once I managed to get a half a newspaper, and somebody helped me in the barrack to put my feet into these newspapers, but they didn't help much.
Miki camp was in the city center. Is that correct? It's quite unusual.
City forest in Vienna called a Prater. And there is a type of amusement park at the very end of the Prater with a world famous, what do you call it?
Ferris wheel.
The reason,
Ferris
Ferris wheel. And I have seen it when it burned down one evening after a bombing. And so our camp was right there between that amusement park and river Donau.
Duna River.
So we have some questions from the audience. So in your book, you speak about how your innocence helped you survive. You didn't really fully understand what was exactly going on. Did you like have any sort of comprehension about what was happening?
I didn't understand it. Actually, we children, we thought that these aeroplanes were quite fun to watch. We didn't understand that we could die of it. And so in the evening, there's big, you have in Hollywood, a huge searchlights, and they tried to shoot down these aeroplanes, and I didn't see that they ever managed to do that. But it was a lot of fun to watch it. We didn't really realize that these bombs could fall on us, what actually happened on Christmas Day.
The bombing, right, on your camp.
Yeah.
So do you remember any of that? What was it like?
Oh, yeah. And that's why I remember so little about what happened before, because this was such an enormous happening. I was playing with this girl called Irina from Ukraine, and we were playing school all the time. I was the teacher and tried to teach her to count in Hungarian. And we had a lot of fun. We didn't understand each other, but can play. And then it happened, all in the sudden. And one would think that is the sound, but actually it's the air. There is this pressured air comes into the room and in my ears, and kind of my whole head is exploding, and I feel a smell of phosphorus and the taste of metal in my mouth. And then came this very difficult to describe, this horrible sound that the whole world is falling apart. And then it's quiet. And I opened my eyes and I couldn't decide first, am I alive? Am I dead? And I was sitting on the floor. There was no floor there really. And I looked around. It was very dark, and the whole shelter was pieces, just big, huge blocks of concrete and iron rods. And I had to decide, am I okay? Or I stood up and I checked, and I got some blood under my nose, but otherwise I was quite unhurt, just covered with this cement. And I was looking for my friend, and she was laying on the floor. And I told her, Irina, come, we have to go out of here. But she didn't move. And I was shaking on her, but there was no life in her. That was the first time I have seen a dead person in my life. And then I have seen a little light further, and I started to crawl toward the light. And it was very difficult because everything was falling all over the place. And finally, I got closer to this opening, and I have seen that some of me, and I recognized that it was a Jewish girl, a little bit older than I am. Her name was Vera Wallenstein. And I told her, Vera, it's I am Miki behind you. Oh, good, come. And she came to this opening, but she couldn't get out. She was too big. And I am right behind her. And I said, can I push you? Yeah, please do that, Miki. So I pushed and pushed, what I managed to, and all in a sudden she fell out. And I very fast after her. And she's standing there by the ruin and pointing to the camp and is crying. And she's telling me, look, they're all dead. And several bombs hit the camp, and the wooden barracks, they were on fire. And most of the people who never came down to the shelters, they died there. And in that shelter, we were 32 people. So it's only Vera and I survived. And I thought, what shall I do? Maybe I run over at 100 meters from this shelter, the next shelter we had. And when I started to run, I see that my best friend, Andreas Sears from my school class, he was running toward me from that shelter. And he was burning. There were flames coming out of both his legs. And an older man was running after him. And he had a type of cover in his hands. And he managed to catch up with Andreas, and he fell on him. So they both ended up on the soil, and he stopped the fire with this cover. So next day, second day, we ended up in a hospital in Vienna, Andreas and I. But imagine when our parents came home from work in the evening and they see what happened, a disaster, and they're running around and trying to find their children. And only four of us of the 50 children from Holocaust survived.
Miki, did you ever think of escaping?
No.
Wasn't a...
I was too little. Life today, unbelievably so.
Wow.
I didn't understand the whole time. I didn't understand why they did it to us. I was very angry, and I was very unhappy, and didn't figure why on earth they did this to us. And even after the war, I thought that just because I'm Jewish, they did this to me. My children should never know that we are Jews. And lots of Jewish people thought like that. And it took me some years until I changed my mind. And I understood that this is the only identity I can have. Luckily, I married a lady who was with me the whole time, and there was no problem for her whatsoever to have this identity. She had it stronger than what I had before, absolutely.
Wow. Do you think
But she's, of course, also she's a daughter of a rabbi, so it's easier. It was easier for her.
And now you're proudly wearing a kippah.
Well, this now started about 40 years ago.
Miki wears a kippah in Gothenburg wherever he goes.
Amazing.
Yeah, I do.
Only
I do.
people.
I do. And actually, people are afraid unnecessarily because I walked with my kippah during the last 47 years in Gothenburg. And it's not once that somebody said something negative. It happens sometimes, I know, but it didn't happen to me.
Was there any, you're a psychologist, do you think as a child there was any either mental or any behavior that helped you survive?
Attitude. What was your attitude?
That's a good question. I wish I would have a good answer.
Someone was
I have
asking
lots
you.
of good answers, I just need questions. But I would think that there are certain people who are survivors somehow, and I cannot pinpoint what characteristic makes a survivor. Whatever situation they get in, they try to get the best out of it.
That's
And I don't think it's conscious. They just do so.
Miki, did you ever think about the future in the camps? Did you ever dream about when you're going to be free one day?
I don't think good question.
It's actually from the audience.
From the
I
audience.
was so busy with being hungry and freezing that completely occupied my mind.
And they never gave you new pants, you were still in the shorts.
No.
Miki, were you ever
Okay.
afraid of death? Were you afraid of dying?
No.
No,
I didn't understand that I could die.
that's crazy.
I didn't.
When you were now in a hospital, you're in a hospital
Yeah.
bed after the bombing. The Americans
Yeah.
bombed the camp.
Yeah.
What was liberation like?
It was unbelievable because we didn't think anything about. I have very little memories for the months in the hospital. Maybe they made some experiments with us. Maybe they tried to save us and gave us sleeping pills. But I have hardly any memories for that time.
How long was that time?
3 months. 3
Wow.
months. They gave us a lot of, because the German patrols came into the hospital frequently looking for Jewish children. There was a children's hospital in Vienna, a regular hospital. And obviously they were hiding us because otherwise we wouldn't have survived. And that very day in April 1945, it was just a regular day, and the bombing, as usual, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we were down in the bombing stopped after 10 o'clock. Quiet. They were shooting outside, but after 11 o'clock, it was very quiet, and we were all in the shelter and didn't know, shall we go up or what will happen? And all in a sudden, a little guy comes down on the steps to the cellar, and he had a very funny uniform. He had a type of a jacket which we haven't seen, and a fur hat with a little red star on it. And he had a funny Tommy gun, type of Tommy gun. And we didn't know where he was. We were scared. And he looks at us, and starts laughing. And we that this is not a German. And we started to laugh, and then within a minute, everybody, we were hundreds of people there, everybody was laughing. And I realized that the war is over.
Wow.
Amazing.
Well, that's beautiful. Unexpected.
And at the same day, in the morning, my father's best friend comes to my father, and I don't know if they had a barrack or where they stayed after the bombing, maybe in a tent or something, I don't know. And he said, Gabor said to my father, come with me. And it was just 6 o'clock in the morning. And my father said, where, what's going on? And he said, just come with me. So he went with him to the entrance of the camp. And then Gabor stops. And he says, huh? What do you think? And my father said, what do I think about Valo? What do you think about Valo? Look around here. Where are our guards? Huh? Where are the guards? And my father looks around. He said, yeah, where are the guards? Ah, there you see. They escaped during the night. We are free people. See, I go out
Amazing.
to the street. Nobody stops me. My father said, you mean that we can go and get Miki in the hospital?
Wow.
When they escaped during the night, they managed to explode these big boats, barges. So everything which was in them flew up to the air and then down the pavement. And there were all kinds of interesting things on the pavement. And that's when they found a huge cheese, this very big cheese, like a wheel of a wagon. And they picked up this cheese. They needed two people. And after all this horrid food, and they were rolling this cheese before them, so they came slowly to the hospital. But at the end, they managed to, they found a wagon that people got their milk in the mornings, milk bottles, and a very old horse before this wagon. So they put the cheese on the wagon, and they were sitting on the wagon very elegantly. They came to the hospital. They found me in the cellar, and Gabor was much stronger than my father.
Who is Gabel? Is he your father's friend, Gabel?
Yeah. And so we started our trip with this old horse and the wagon.
And the cheese.
And the cheese, yeah. And so Gabor got somewhere a little pocket knife and cut a big piece of cheese for me. So you can imagine after all this horrid food, eating this wonderful piece of cheese. So we had only this cheese, and we ate this cheese for almost 2 weeks. So since then, I refused to eat this kind of cheese. Interesting. I mean, it's a long story. But when we were finally back in Budapest, my father lost me. And somebody maybe even took me to the closest police station. And the Budapest police was very different than the country police. And they were nice to me. There were only 2 policemen in this station. And then one promised me to take me to my father's brother to Budapest. And on our long walk to it was in Buda, you know, Budapest are 2 cities and a river in between. And during this, I asked him what the date was, because I was curious if I was already 9 years old or not.
Were you 9?
I was 9 already then. I didn't know. And then I started to tell him what happened to us during the year, and he didn't want to believe. He said, I mean, I can't believe it could really happen to a little boy like that. And
is there one certain event in the wartime that has impacted you the most?
it was a tremendous experience for me that when we finally managed to come to my father's brother, and my father tells me, you know, I have to tell you something. And I didn't like it when he said something like that. And
There was trouble.
He didn't know how to phrase it. And then he said, you know, mother, your mom is not with us anymore. And I said, so where is she? And, you know, he didn't know how to say it, that she was dead. And we still, until today, we don't really know how she died. I was jealous only my youth of my friends who had a wonderful mother. I didn't have a mother.
So hard.
Miki, it's been 75 years since the war. What's your message to the younger generation?
The message is very simple. War shouldn't. War is stupid and unnecessary. Today, a war it's a nightmare. It can be like this virus, or, you know, it kills the whole world. And this is no kidding. And children should realize they are playing these stupid TV games, so you know, they're always shooting. I try to tell people everywhere I go to do something in a situation which they think is unfair.
Stand up.
Maybe take the mobile phone and ring the emergency, do something, and they will feel very good if they feel that they did something. This is my main message.
Miki, thank you so much. And
thank you, Miki. It was
really
so
appreciate
special speaking to you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you,
Bye.
Miki.
so much.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.